Major problems with the National Retirement Risk Index that Boston College does. I've done videos on this every year because it's so. If we're going to scare people about retirement, can at least scare them with reality, please, folks at Boston College, because what you're doing here is basically scaring people without any basis in reality. Anyway. Let's dive into this. And I don't know why. Just real quick, I don't understand why this keeps happening. It's weird. It's like why the doomsday stuff? It's weird to me, man. Oh well, we got to get people to invest more, and that way we can do it. Like, yeah, let me show you what I'm talking about. Hold on a second. All right, and so they'll show stuff like historical annual savings rate. All right, and they're going to say, oh, we were way up here in the '60s, way up here, and then it started to drop off. It's gone back up a little bit, but well below the average. Oh my goodness, what could possibly be the cause for right about there is at the max? Then it started dropping. Anyone want to take a guess what caused that? Anyone? Let's take a guess, shall we? Back open my book, You Can Retire on Social Security by your old buddy Josh, and we look at page, I just had it and I lost it because Pablo said I need to go outside right here. This is page 86. Tax rates as a percentage of taxable income. All right. So from, let's see, we're going back to this chart right here, and we had tax rates in Social Security in the 60s were basically 3 to 3.5% for you and 3 to 3.5% for your employer with no Medicare. Medicare kicked in 1966 at 0.35%. All right, so between 1966, you were paying 4.2% for FICA taxes, essentially. Oh, boy. He just barges on in like, here I am, Dad. Let's party. All right, so there goes the other one. Oh, boy. The ghost in the machine. All right, so then we go back to we'll just look at, let's see here. Let's look at 1975. 1975, it was 4.9% and then 0.9 to FICA. Now we go to the late 80s. It's now where we're at now, 7.65%. All right, so what's happened here, as you pay more to Social Security, inherently you have less to pay for yourself. And that's just a fact. I don't get why people don't understand this. It's not just you, by the way. Your employer also has less money to pay for you for your income, for your salary, because they're also paying 7.65. All right, so you have more to pay for Social Security. Your employer has more to pay, which means there's less money for you to receive from your employer and less money for you to save for yourself. So anyway, this is what the naysayers, oh my goodness, look, it's well below average. And you're like, yeah, well, because Social Security is well above average. I mean, literally, we could take this. We could say, what is our average Social Security rate, taxes? And it's probably 4% or something like that. I haven't done it. It's easy to do. And you say, what are we now? 7.65. Thus, makes sense? All right, so then we go back to things like the National Retirement Risk Index, and it's weird, man. All right, so the retooled index confirms earlier findings that half of American households will not be able to maintain their standard of living when they retire. Not be able to maintain their standard of living. What does that mean? Think about that for a second. Your pre-retirement standard of living versus your post-retirement standard of living. Think about this deeply for a second, would you? My pre-retirement standard of living is what? I'm raising 4 children, 4 kids. We have mortgages. We have cars. We have homeowners insurance. We have life insurance. We have all these braces. We have all these things that have to go into my standard of living. What does not happen when I hit retirement? Those things mostly go away. They're gone. So my standard of living, the income I need to maintain my standard of living, to pay for braces, to pay for injuries, broken bones, to pay for 4 cars with insurance for teenage boys, for food and all that, it drops. I don't need the same income. Now also, my kids are out of the house. Has my standard of living declined? No, because it's just me and Charlotte. We don't need as much for our standard of living relative to our pre-retirement. It's just common sense. So it's stupid to say, well, Josh, you need $100,000 a year to maintain your standard of living. Yeah, $100,000. I'm just throwing it out there. $100,000 a year for a family of 6. Yes. $100,000 a year for a family of 2? No. So my standard of living, i.e. my income has gone, or my expenses has gone down. Has my standard of living gone down? No. My standard of living is just as high as it was before. All right, and then on top of that, so that's freaking stupid, dude. So half of households will not be able to maintain their standard of living. All right, so now we're going to go down here. And we're going to show you here. The NRII, the National Retirement Risk Index, is constructed with data from the Survey of Consumer Finances from the Federal Reserve. I get that. There's three things. Number one, projecting a replacement rate. Retirement income is a share of pre-retirement income. All right. So again, we're going to say your pre-retirement income is $100,000. We're going to project the amount of money you need to have the same standard of living that the $100,000 would provide you pre-retirement. That's our replacement rate. All right, let's keep going. All right, number two, constructing a target replacement rate that would allow each household to maintain its pre-retirement standard of living. Comparing the projected and target rates to determine the households at risk. All right, so we got let's see here. The projected replacement rate at age 65, the target replacement rate, and if we have, I think it's a 10% difference between the projected and the target, then we have a family that's at risk. All right, let's keep going. We'll keep going because that's silly. The replacement rate calculation starts with a projection of retirement income at age 65. The measure is defined broadly to include income from Social Security and pensions and your financial assets. All right, and housing, which includes imputed rent as well as home equity. What? Why would you use imputed rent? Are we looking at CPI? Next thing you know, you're going to have owner's equivalent rent. By the way, buy my new book. I talk about the silliness of CPI right here. My new book, Relax and Retire. The asset values for the latter three components, defined contribution assets, non-defined contribution financial assets, and housing equity, are derived from reported wealth in the Survey for Consumer Finances. They are each projected separately at age 65 based on the respective wealth-to-income ratios by age, which are stable over time. Again, we're using averages here. All right, whatever. Let's keep going. The NRRI then assumes that households convert all their assets, including financial assets, your 401ks, IRAs, and all that, and proceeds from a reverse mortgage into a stream of income by purchasing an inflation-indexed annuity. So they're taking all of your equity and all of your assets, and they're going to give you an inflation-indexed annuity. So let's click on this right here because we're going to come down. Inflation index annuities are not widely used for consumers. In fact, I went over here to Schwab. They have no inflation index annuity. I went to USA. There's no inflation index annuity. I went to immediateannuities.com. There's no inflation index annuity. You know why? Because the inflation index annuities don't pay anything on the front end. This is why when I used to sell annuities, so basically, let me show you an example. We say I had $100,000 to put in, just for simplicity. And if you had a straight annuity that didn't change with inflation, it'd pay you $6,000 a year, $6,000. All right, so $6,000 each and every year until you're dead. If you had an inflation index annuity, it'd pay you like $4,000, but it would go up $4,000 on the front end of your retirement. And by the time, usually it took about 18 to 20 years, it finally break $6,000 or something like that. Literally, you're talking into your mid to late 80s for it actually made a sense to do an inflation index annuity. Now you can't get them because they don't pay anything. They don't pay anything, and there's no CPI inflation. What are you gonna do based on CPI, consumer or what is this? The NRRI? You're gonna do a CPI? Or are you gonna do some a compounded rate in terms of net present? What's the word I'm looking for? Discount rate. You can use some discount rate just pulling out of the air. What? So if you can't, so he's going to say right here, they even said it right. While inflation index annuities are not widely used by consumers, they provide a convenient metric for calculating the income that can be obtained from a lump sum. No, they don't. There is no convenient method that requires the income to be obtained from a lump sum. You're not even saying what the inflation index annuities are. You're not even saying is it based on CPI, is it based on discount rate? You're just throwing this out there, and no one consumer can get it. And while inflation index annuities provide a smaller initial benefit, a much smaller initial benefit. So again, we're saying if I start with $4,000, if I annuitize everything, and I start with $4,000 a year, it is growing right here. Well, let's just say I have $6,000 a year, but my need is 5,000 smackaroonies, all right? So inherently, I'm going to be at risk if I annuitize everything over here, inherently. Because I have a need of 5,000, but my inflation index annuity only gives me 4,000. Yes, it will hit 5,000 10, 15 years from now, but I have an at risk because I don't have enough income from an annuitization of my assets. Now you might say, but later on, Josh, that $6,000 won't be enough to cover this $5,000 that you need when you factor inflation. Maybe, but there's also this thing called expenditures. Let me show you again. This is what drives me crazy. I don't understand this. It's insanity. What? Changes in spending, annual average household spending by age, it actually declines as I age. Here I am at 65 years old. I'm spending about $70,000 a year. By the time I'm 85, I'm spending $50,000 a year. That's crazy. Oh, but that's only for rich people who are making $250,000 to $750,000 investable wealth. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing here. Why is our spending dropping? Because we consume less as we age. I know that's shocking. Here we go. Well, this is the rich people, I guess, right here. The same thing. Their spending drops. Spending drops. This is what makes this so infuriating. Your spending drops as you age. All the evidence shows this. So to say I need an inflation index annuity because I need this $5,000 a year that I need to grow with inflation, and yet I'm only getting $4,000 on annuitizing everything because that will grow with inflation as well. When all the evidence says the exact opposite, that as you age, your spending declines. There's no evidence that says otherwise. People are using that. Look, I talk about my book. They'll talk about the retirement spending smile. I destroy that in the book. The evidence is lacking on that for sure. And I like Blanchett, David Blanchett, who wrote that piece on the retirement spending smile. I'm a big fan. I interviewed him for my blog, my podcast. But the issue is the evidence that the retirement spending smile is prevalent for most Americans is just not there. It's just not. All right, so again, the idea that we have to have this level of spending that adjusts with inflation, how's inflation based on? They don't say that I can see. And they're going to do an inflation index annuity where you annuitize everything. It's just so freaking dumb. I don't get why they do this. I literally don't understand it. Let's keep going. A commonly used benchmark is a replacement rate needed for the households to maintain their pre-retirement standard of living. People typically need less than their pre-retirement income since they generally pay less in taxes, no longer need to save for retirement, and often have paid off their mortgage. You think? Thus, a greater share of their income is available for spending. This index estimates the target replacement rates for different types of households using a consumption smoothing model, which is based on Modigliani. There's a guy, old economist, Francis Modigliani or something like that, who won a Nobel Prize on consumption smoothing. The old, it's like the efficient market theory. Hypothesis, and it's so. And with consumption smoothing, I actually agree with consumption smoothing, which is based on the assumption that households want the same level of consumption in retirement as they had before they retired. Where is the evidence of this? I completely agree with consumption smoothing, 100%. But consumption smoothing does not mean you have the same level of consumption pre-retirement as post-retirement. Where is that based on? Let's see what they say here. The greatest share for saving. Let's see. The level of replacement required by smoothing consumption is varied by type of household. Low-income households get most of their retirement income from Social Security and need little for saving for retirement. Okay, so they're already discounting the risk for low-income people because they already get it from Social Security. All right. Thus, low-income households need a higher replacement rate in retirement, and that's where Social Security comes in. Social Security is regressive or progressive. Progressive. It helps the people on the lower end more than helps the people on the higher end. Now we're going to compare those replacement rates. If they fall more than 10% below the target as deemed necessary, they're going to be at risk of having insufficient income to maintain their pre-retirement standard of living. The index is simply the percentage of working age households that fall more than 10% short of their targets. It's important to note the practical meaning of at risk differs by households' level of income. Households with very low income may have trouble affording life's basic necessities. Whatever. All right, let's keep going. So here the big change that they made in this, but I was bashing these guys before on this because they were using the mean wealth. Now they're, the biggest change that what they've just recently done is modifying the projection of wealth to income ratios for each household to more accurately reflect wealth distributions observed in the data. The previous projected method was using on the mean wealth growth path estimated by a linear regression approach. That sounds scientific, but it's come on. A drawback, because anytime you're using the mean, the averages, it always skews towards the outlier. So you don't want to use the averages here because it's going to make people look like they have more mean wealth, more average wealth than the average person does. You want to use median wealth. And that would be a drawback if you're using the average wealth of American society as a whole. Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, with their ill-gotten gains, are going to skew the averages towards them. And that's not what we want. We want to use a median. And at least they recognize that here. So right here, in fact, they say a drawback to this approach is that given growing wealth inequality, the results are increasingly biased towards the accumulation path of richer households. 100%. Again, I agree with that 100%. And it frankly shocks me that it took until 2023 for these guys to recognize that. I'm stunned. In contrast, the new method projects wealth based on median values, which makes the wealth projections that retire better reflect the observed distribution, i.e. just more representative of you and I, just regular Joe and Jane Smith out there. The number one thing here is how they're defining the target replacement rate. All right, how do they define that? Because this is what it's based on. If you have a target replacement rate of 80%, and you only got 70% of when you annuitize everything in inflation index annuity, okay, you're 10% short, which means you're at risk. And that's what this whole thing is based on. What is the replacement rate? Interesting. What ticks me off the most, given that the target replacement rate is so important in this whole study, wouldn't it make sense to show what your target replacement rates are? And they don't do that. I mean, why would you hide that, man? And so they're going to show you right here. I think it's right here. For each of the 12 categories, the target replacement rate model also calculates different targets by defined benefit coverage and homeownership. The values of the 12 targets are matched to observed households are the weighted average across defined benefit coverage and homeownership. Okay, but there's nothing in here that shows what the target replacement is. Nothing. I mean, here's the people at risk, and here's the people at risk by age group, by, I think, income, but there's no target replacement rate. It doesn't say what the target replacement rate is, man. So how can, source, author's calculations. Well, why would you not, I literally don't understand why it doesn't say. I guess you could look at these right here, the target replacement rates. I've done that before, and I don't recall ever seeing it. It doesn't say in the end notes either. What is my target replacement rate? If they got these households right here, let me show you. So here's the median income levels for the low, middle, and high households: 22, 43, 85 for 50, 110, 248 for couples. What is the target replacement rates? Where is it? Where is the number explicitly stating the target replacement rate? How can you? It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I don't understand why they don't have that on there. It should be front and center. This is what our target replacement is: 80%, 90%, 75%. I just don't understand that. And it's the thing. The National Retirement Risk Index, an update from 2019. It fell slightly, so now only 49% of people at risk, but there's no replacement rate. It's just it's nothing more than a press release. So we come back here and we look at all this stuff, man. It's the same thing here. It's so frustrating. Look, and there are going to be people on here like, I had a guy posted something like, because I said 77% of retirees are content in retirement and are comfortable. And people, of course, say, well, that means 22% of the people are not. That's a big deal. Well, yeah, there's always 20% of people that are always the outliers. I hate to say it. That sucks for them. Maybe there are different things they could have done in their life. Is that you? No. So if you're going to allow yourself to be dictated that you can't retire because 20% of the population spends a lot of money for long-term care, for instance, 20% of the population dies well before they should in terms of their average life expectancy. 20% of the people have a hard time making ends meet in retirement. Yeah, that sucks. But still, it means 80% of the people don't. 80% of the people are not only having a hard time having a hard time making ends meet, they're actually comfortable in retirement. Look, the negative Nellies are silly. I tune those out. The vast majority of people are doing just fine in retirement. Year over year over year, they survey this, the same thing. So why would we continue on this? I mean, look at this. This National Retirement Risk Index goes back to 2006 right here. Retirement's at risk, a national. So let's take a look at this one, shall we? I mean, it's weird, man. And we're going to go here. And hold on a sec. And even back there, 49% of Generation Xers, that's me, 44% of late bloomers were at risk. In the bottom third, Generation Xers, 60% right. This is 2006. I mean, what's that about? Well, here's what it's about. The situation is not hopeless. This is 2006. If people retire at age 67 as opposed to 65, the share of households at risk would drop by 11 points. Also, if people could save 3% more from an early age, it would drop by another 11%. So if you save more and work longer. Where have we heard that before? It's the same old story. So here they're showing us the labor force participation rate. Well, I'd hope they show the replacement rate that they're using. Let's see. They got the average retirement age right there. Projecting retirement income. Do we see any? This is from 2006, mind you. Do we see any replacement rate on this at all? I think they did actually a long time ago. Let's see. I'm not sure if they're still using it or not. And this is what we all do. We throw these fancy schmancy good time rock and roll calculations to show how smart we are. That's what all people do. All right, so here we go. Replacement rates for households by cohorts. All right. The cohorts as a whole, the median replacement rates declined from 77 for the early boomers to 69% for the late boomers. The median replacement, what do they say? Summarize the median for birth they do say, okay, good. So they are saying for the cohorts as a whole, the median replacement rate declines from 77. Again, that's the 80% thing. No one, that's silly. That's for early boomers. Now this is almost 20 years ago they're using this. So the people who are closest to retirement, they're basically saying a 77% retirement replacement rate. Fast forward to that, was that 18 years ago, 17 years from this, it's going to be the Generation Xers, me, we're going to move up, and we're not going to have a 65% replacement rate. So it's good to see that they're actually saying you need about 77% replacement rate if you're that close to retirement. And that's just straight up dumb, dude. What's that evidence based on? It's not, I mean, literally, they're essentially it's this simple. You have $100,000 of income. You spend $10,000 your 401k contribution, 10%. You spend 10% in just state and federal income taxes, 7.65 to FICA. That's your 23% is going to taxes and 401k savings. Thus, you have a 77% replacement rate. It's literally that simple. You can show all the fancy schmancy good time rock roll calculations you want. It's just based on that. How much you put in your 401k, how much you pay for state taxes, federal taxes, how much you pay for FICA. And we're going to subtract that. You have $100,000 of income, you pay $23,000 in taxes, thus you have a 77% income. Your replacement rate is 77% of your pre-retirement income. Dumb. It's crazy, man. It infuriates me. So here you go. Early boomers right here. Again, the early boomers now, we fast forward to today, these Generation Xers are a lot closer to retirement. Late boomers are too. So you can see the replacement rate here is for one earner of Generation X is 87. One earner of late boomers 94%. But how can they put this in their new one? Why only put it in 2006? Why haven't they updated it? Source, author's calculations. That can't be peer reviewed. I thought we were all about peer review here. Dude, it's just insanity. All right. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to buy my books. I debunk all this stuff right here. All 4 books. They're all not very expensive, man. They're not. Look, this guy right here, my most popular book, is only 75 pages. This one I love right here is only 4 pages. You Can Retire on Social Security, 118 pages. This is my biggest one, my new one right here, 172 pages. You could buy my You Can Retire on Wellington. The drawback is I don't like Wellington anymore because they've gone woke. And you can also buy my fiction book, Return to Peaks Island. You should buy that. That's cool. All right. Love your thoughts. We'll see you.